from one contentious subject to another. Paedophiles. There is no one among us who would not like to see them caught and their victims protected. The question of how is a matter for debate. So-called paedophile hunters have been a source of controversy, with the police often asking them to cease their activity. But recent figures showed that in 2016, evidence from these groups has been used in 44% of child grooming court cases. The police have finally conceded that they may need to start working with these groups, and I fully agree with them. To me, this is clear. Protecting children from sexual abuse must be paramount. The internet has allowed these vile paedophiles much easier access to victims at a time when police resources are stretched. It's time these groups are supported with training and are embraced as part of the fight to keep our children safe.
Michelle, child abuse is one of the most emotive subjects on the planet. There can't be a parent alive who wouldn't cheerfully kill someone who had interfered with their child. And you know, there's a part of me that says paedophiles are scum and they deserve everything that's coming to them. But there's another part of me says that we can't allow vigilante groups to take over this. And I don't know whether you guys remember, but Nick, you certainly will, the News of the World Name and Shame campaign back in 2001. Yes. And that was after the death of Sarah Payne. Yeah. Every parent in the land was devastated by this. And so the News of the World published photographs of 100 paedophiles. And they published the addresses where they lived, all the rest of it. So what happened was vigilante groups went to the homes of these people, only they got it wrong in some cases. They went to the house of one guy who was a paediatrician, and they didn't know the difference between the word. He got beaten up. They went to another guy's house who wore a neck brace, much like the one that one of these paedophiles was wearing in the photograph. They beat him up. One paedophile did hang himself as a result of the mob coming to his door. Now, you know, people, I can hear parents at home saying, who cares if he hung himself? But what happens if we let the rule of law go in these cases? You can't control a vigilante mob. They don't ask for ID.
She's saying train them, though.
Yeah, so let me come back to your point. So I fundamentally share your view. I disagree entirely with naming and shaming and putting people's addresses and pictures. That is absolutely wrong, and that would force people to go and beat these people up. That's all wrong, and that's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm talking about, and in a moment I'll play you a clip from somebody that's doing this kind of work. There is so many people out there that are grooming children online. They've got so much easy access to this. Now, what I am talking about is responsible people helping the police force by helping them. In these chat rooms, they're pretending to be children, and then what they are doing is when it's suggested that they want to meet this child for sexual activity, those paedophile hunters are turning up to meet those children, calling the police in advance, alerting the police, and they are then, when the police arrive, they are then handing the person and the case over to the police.
But you know that's gone wrong already.
Yes, and that's what
shopping centre where they exposed a guy and then the public started to beat him up.
Yeah, so what I do not like, what some of these groups used to do, is video the encounter.
Yeah.
That is wrong. And video it and stream it, that's fundamentally wrong. So I don't want anyone being beat up in false cases. I want these groups to be trained, to be working with the police officers to understand what's right, what's wrong, what's the best way to do this, how don't you jeopardise, etc. And before I bring somebody else in, I just would like to... We've asked one of these prominent paedophile hunters, you know, what do they do and how they do it, and he's just responded in this way.
Or wait for them to arrange a meet, or turn up about an hour before, scout the area, contact the police, wait for the guy to turn up, do a confrontation video, and then they're arrested and hopefully sent down.
June?
Well, I agree with Carol on this one, because I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't know how you police this properly, because even if you do have these clear guidelines, what happens when people break those rules? And I just think once we go down that sort of mob mentality, that vigilante path, we're opening ourselves up for all manner of madness.
What happens next? Are we going to have undercover girls who pose as potential rape victims? Are we going to... It's a really... Now, this is born out of frustration.
No, I wouldn't advocate that, by the way.
No, but this is, you can see, let's try and trap all sorts of people committing all... This is born out of frustration in some instances, perhaps, by people sensing that the police don't go after them vigorously enough. And speaking in a week where it's been announced some police forces now aren't going to turn out for burglars anymore, and we've already had stories, well-publicised stories, that they're only going to turn out if it's an odd number door or an even number door. I can't quite remember what it is. I think there's a question of resources. Actually, I don't even know that it would be able to do it, to provide the proper training. And one other thing, as someone who's been around newspaper stories for so many years, in some of these instances, you could risk prejudicing or destroying a case where the police are within inches of a major arrest.
Yeah.
Somebody for mostly the right reasons. I, hear the word confrontation, just a little warning light goes off. And suddenly, a guy who was going to go down for a long, long time, you've blown the case.
So if I make, just to pick up on what you've said, a very important point. I think it is so bad that the way our police forces have been cut in this country. Yeah. We've had a cut over 20,000. The neighbourhood policing that used to see 36,000 of them, they've been cut. I mean, that was a deterrent. They picked up information. They've gone. I mean, this is the most important thing of a government, is the security of its citizens. And we've been negligent there. So then if you look at it from that point of view, anything that these people are doing that can be seen to help the police, they need the help. But the danger is, when is a citizen's arrest? When somebody is brave enough to actually tackle somebody on the street, that's bravery. They make a citizen, everyone applauds that. Here, if you actually catch a paedophile, no one's saying, don't report it, don't try and stop it. Of course people would say that. Vigilantism is a different thing altogether. And the other aspect that's really, really... Lord Bramall, what happened to him? When people are falsely accused, his wife died
He was before he
was proven to be innocent. I mean, that is so shocking when it goes wrong. So we've got to be very careful about this, but the police need every bit of help they can get.
Just to remind viewers, he was a former field marshal who was wrongly accused of being involved by that fantasist Nick, and his wife went to her grave never knowing that her husband had a child. Sorry, just let everybody know. Carol.
I forgot what I was going to say.
All right.
No, so the internet is so vast, and even if we was putting more and more police officers into, virtual chat rooms and all the rest of it, you would still struggle to stop and catch as many people as you ought to, and to keep as many children safe as we should. So I share your concerns. I don't want people... And the thing with the word vigilante, it makes people really uncomfortable because you associate it with violence.
But listen,
these guys are not conducting violence.
Listen to what some of these groups are called. One of them is called The Hunted One. One of them is called Let's Go Hunting. It's L-E-T-Z. Now that sounds really sinister.
It's not Watch.
It's also further complicated. It's further complicated by the fact that a lot of what they're doing is not illegal. It's actually not illegal.
Well,
so that's what makes it even more difficult debate.
And I think there was a case back in April or something earlier on this year.
People falsify emails. I mean, I just think we open ourselves up to all sorts.
And even if you train them, a policeman, it takes a long time to train them properly. A member of the public is not going to have the mindset of a cop. He's not going to have the control of a policeman. So if he comes across a paedophile, he could lose it in a way that a policeman just would not.
But then what's the alternative then? So you try and stop these groups and you let these children...
Well, the alternative is what Karen is saying. We start investing in our police service
more. Sadly,
but you couldn't...
Which we, in the age of terrorism, we need to anyway.
We have to. I mean, that's a must. I mean, armed police force. Again, with all the horrible attacks that are taking place. I mean, sadly, in Parliament, we had a policeman who was killed. There were no armed guards at the gate at that time.
But that's
now
not going to stop children being groomed online.
But I'm saying, generally speaking, we need more resource.
Has there been a tremendous spike? Because, sadly, I find it utterly incomprehensible. There will always be paedophiles out there, sadly. Unless there's been a tremendous spike in activity, I would argue that the laws we've got, should we be nicking more? Yes, of course we should. But we are getting them, and they are going before the courts, and now when they go before the courts, they get proper sentences. So, in a way, unless you can show that we've suddenly had an explosion and no one is doing anything about it, I don't know that we need to go down this path.
Well, this path is there, so this path is happening. It's been happening for a very long time, and they've tried to shut these groups down many, many times. And now what the police are saying is actually shutting them down is not working, so they're doing it anyway. So actually, how can we use these people? These people are obviously, dare I say it, very good at what they do in terms of actually,
we don't need to legally be encouraging it. That's what you're saying here.
No, what I'm saying is, actually, there was the case that I described that shows that they're not doing anything illegal anyway. So, but what I would be saying is, listen, you can't be everywhere. The police force, even with all of the extra resource in the world, they cannot be everywhere all of the time. So if there are people that are safely, and I'm not advocating anyone battering anyone, I'm not advocating that.
No,
if you can safely do it.
I just don't think it's possible
in every area, many crimes are solved with the help of the public. And that's the balance. If the public can be helpful to the police, everyone will be for it.
Of course.